Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and in today's episode we are going to be reviewing the latest update to the DC Designs F-15 and see what kind of improvements it brought to the simulator. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. Okay, real quick, I want to make sure that I level with you guys really fast here, so just please don't skip ahead from this disclaimer. That way you can understand where my state of mind is when it comes to this particular aircraft. This aircraft is sold as what is identified on the Just Flight page as 3 different aircraft, basically the 3 different variations of the F-15. Now, my thing is here, guys, I want to make very clear, at $40 price range, and being that I have flown all the different variants that come with this package, my conclusion, my personal beliefs is you are basically paying $40 for one aircraft with 3 different skins. Okay, and then all the liveries that are included with such. Okay, I have not been what you would call very positive in my previous reviews of this aircraft. It's had a lot of issues, in my personal opinion. Doesn't meet anywhere close to the real-world flight experience in the past, and hopefully today that's some of that's going to change. So I just wanted to make sure that was all leveled out very clear in what my expectations are and the way that I review this aircraft. I do not consider this, again, my biggest issue is that I do not consider this as getting 3 aircraft for $40. I believe you get 1 with 3 different skins because they all fly pretty much identical to each other, in my opinion. Okay. So, with that out of the way, let's see if the latest update, there was an update, I think it was last week is when it was. And today we're going to check it out. All right, so let's get started here. We're just going to do a hot start. Control E. See how it sounds. See how it feels. Position lights, nav lights. Did I not hit it? I thought I did. Oh, there we go. How do you get rid of the pilot? There it goes, I think. Okay. All right, right engine's holding steady. Oh, that's left engine. Still left engine. There she goes. Oh, sorry. That was the left engine, not the right engine. I meant to move the left engine. Okay. I see. So the cutoff position on the throttle is recorded. Now what that means is that when you pull your physical throttle all the way back to idle, it's actually setting the controls back to the cutoff position. Ooh. And way more power than what should be delivered at that point, but let's see. Should be looking for about 60% on the idle. Start that left or that right engine. Okay, I really don't want the pilot body. How do you get rid of the damn pilot body? Anybody know? Oh, I see. Chocks, covers. Don't need the visor. Not sure what those do. That's nice. At least you have the external sounds now with the canopy open. Canopy model's a little bit better in the way it closes. And let's see here. We got 2 engines at idle. Let's pull them back to, again, that 60% is where we should be right about. Oh, nope, we lost one. Yeah, they need to fix that. Again, I get what they're trying to do. And with the pilot body in the way, that's very, Oh, you know what? That's what it is. I figured out. It's the custom view is binding. I get it. So I made my own custom view earlier for the cockpit alignment. And when I tapped it, it generated the pilot body. If I tap it again, brings it back. So I just have to... It's the key binding for the pilot body. All right, fair enough. That's okay. Okay, so we have 2 engines up and running. We are over at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. We're going to go for a quick flight. We're going to see what the aircraft is all about. So let's release the parking brake. So far, the ground control is much better than I remember. I will tell you guys, I haven't flown this aircraft since our previous review, so it's been a while. But so far, the ground handling seems to have improved, which is excellent. I mean, literally excellent. That's wonderful. We're going to hit this milk truck. Okay, there he goes. Something else I'm noticing, there's like smudges, maybe what are supposed to be, I'm trying to get to an angle where you guys can see it. Yeah, like right here. I don't know how well that's displaying. We'll probably be able to see it better when we turn onto the runway heading. But there's like smudges, what looks like maybe water textures or a dead bug here and up here. I would recommend removing that, as there's no way in heck they would go up in a fighter aircraft with an impaired windscreen. So that they wouldn't. And again, those are just little details. That doesn't make it a good or a bad aircraft, and I get it, trying to add some of that immersion experience of not always having the perfectly clean cockpit or canopy, but fighter pilot having a obstructional wear on the windshield probably wouldn't go over well. I will say I was messing around with the MFD earlier, just sort of poking around the cockpit, playing around with it. The functionality of it is actually rather nice. The ability to track your waypoints and everything is pretty slick. We won't demonstrate any of that today. I'm more interested in how the aircraft flies, and that's where my peak is for today. Let's go ahead and set our barometric pressure. There we go. Let's make sure I remember to set live weather, actually, come to think of it. I can't even remember. Yes, I did. Okay, cool. I have been like so bad about it. The reason why I leave it disabled usually is just because I'm always testing things, right? So sometimes the live weather can be the problem. So I like to first test everything, whether it be newly created aircraft, things like that. Things from Flight Sim.2. I like to test them on dry weather kind of thing. Still weather, guys. Still weather is what I was trying to get out right there. Isn't that ridiculous? Still weather. That's what I was trying to say. And by the way, I do want to make a quick correction. There are 4 variants of the F-15 that are included with the package. F-15 C, D, E, and I are what are included. But again, I want to make it very, very clear that my biggest objection has been, up until this point, we'll see how it goes, is that you are basically getting one aircraft. There are minor differences to the flight models of the individual aircraft, but for the most part, I have found that they fly the same. So I'm trying to get my track IR squared up. I redid my profile. See, like, all this up here. I hope you guys can see that. Okay, what was that? Okay, so that's some sort of weird bouncing from hitting the brakes. Oh, and I pulled the throttles too far back, so now it's... They gotta fix that. I get what you guys were doing. Remove the cutoff from the throttle axis. Make it a button, make it a switch, just like all the other aircraft that you have to click. Do the whole, like the TBM, you know, where you have to hold the left click and then give it a right click to move it down or above the cutoff. You know, whatever you gotta do, but you can't put that in the throttle axis. Yeah, look, this is just, that's from me pushing on the brake at 8 knots or whatever that was. That's a big problem. That's a big problem. You should be able to hit the brakes without bouncing the aircraft like that. We'll see what happens. That makes me a little concerned for landing. How are we supposed to land it? But we'll see. We'll try everything out. We'll try to be gentle with the brakes and see if that doesn't make things a bit easier. Okay, let's see here. So we are under load today, so I'm going to set the flaps. Does it say flaps full? So we only have the 2 stages of flaps. Is that what I'm seeing? Is that right? Oh. Alright. I thought the F-15 had a half flap setting, but maybe I'm mistaken on that. Alright. Well, I guess we're taking off with full flaps. Actually, we have a lot of runway here. We're just going to try without flaps. Let's see what we got. We should be able to do it. So, we're going to apply power. Now, one of my biggest other gripes with her is she would accelerate way too fast. So we're at max power here. Much better acceleration curve so far. Much more realistic. Yes, it's going to be fast, but it's not like 12 feet fast. Should be looking for about 150 knots. Let's rotate. Whoa. Okay. Alright, so this is just barely touching the controls here. I mean, this, literally, guys, I am putting left pressure on my flight stick. If I move it at all, the turn rate becomes pretty insane here. Flaps are up, good. Couldn't remember if I got them up or not. Okay. So, I don't know if you guys can see that smudge I was talking about. You know what? Here, let's pull up in the sun. You can't really see it in the sun, huh? There. Look right here. So, and again, I get what they're trying to do there. I get what the developer's trying to do. Trying to add some wear and tear. You know, the scratches that you get just from the sheer wind speed coming over the canopy. So it's not a deal breaker at any means. My biggest issue has always been the handling of the aircraft. So let's talk about it. Let's just sort of tool around for a minute. This is my first time flying it with this model. Let's do what I like to do, get down low, grip it and rip it. And let's just see what we can do to sort of follow the interstate here, see what it brings. What it takes to keep the aircraft under control and where we're looking. I will say that the flight dynamics already remind me very much of Flybywire. And no, not the A320, but the actual fly-by-wire method of flying, where, for example, the F-16 is a fly-by-wire aircraft, and the reason why I'm getting it, like, for example, if we do a right bank and I center the stick, it just holds. The F-15 wouldn't do that if memory serves, because it is not a fly-by-wire aircraft. So as soon as you recenter the stick, the control surfaces are going to center as well. It also doesn't have anything controlling the stability of the aircraft. And that's just my understanding. I may be wrong about some of this, but the F-15 has been one of my favorite aircraft for years and years. So that doesn't mean crap. Doesn't mean I know everything about it by any means. So it's cool. I'm having fun. It's not that I'm not having a good time with it. I want to stress that right now. But it's also very wonky. It's very janky. It's like, there are springs on every surface of the aircraft. So if we turn left, there's a spring that tries to push it back right. If we turn right, there's a spring that tries to push the nose back to the left. If we come up, that one wasn't as bad. I almost wonder if setting some curves would be advantageous. The flight model has definitely improved from the first time that I flew it, and honestly the second and third time. Like I said, the first few updates, unfortunately, that's why I stopped reviewing the aircraft on the channel. I felt like all I was doing was saying horrible things. I'm not trying to necessarily bash any developers, but this was one of those aircraft that I very much so felt that you were not getting what you paid for. And what was advertised is more accurate. It's better. It is definitely seen an improvement. The HUD alignment is still very goofy. I think that's something that... and from this view, you look at the cockpit view here, I would say if I can, again, if this happens to reach the eyes of the developer, push the HUD back. The actual display of the HUD, the information that's being displayed, push it back. That way it's more clearly in between the two uprights for the HUD display, and not as difficult to maintain visual on it. It is definitely a major improvement from the last time I flew it. Massive improvement. But my next critique would be the control surfaces are too sensitive. Do whatever you have to do. Again, if this happens to reach Dean's ears, do whatever you have to do to reduce the input of the controls. They're too sensitive. They're way too touchy. Don't lose the roll rate. Just lose how little input you have to put in to do it. increase the curvature required. The roll rate of the aircraft is great. I mean, yeah, she's for the longest time she was one of the most maneuverable aircraft in the world. So, you know, I mean, but you know, so that roll rate is good. That's a good strong roll rate. But just reduce the input so that way at low control movements she's a bit more controllable. It definitely still needs a bit of tweaking. It definitely still, like I said, feels like like I said, the spring analogy hopefully makes sense. It's not that it's terrible; it's just noticeable. I'm really trying to give it its due credit here. I am having a good time flying it. The last time I tried to do something like this in the F-15. It went very badly because I had the aircraft was so unpredictable, and at least now I can predict what movements the aircraft's going to make. The other thing that I would do is increase the drag if you can, especially with all of the loadout that I have on this aircraft. This aircraft is loaded. So, in those turns that I'm doing, yeah, see, she's just turning way too fast with such little movement. With the weight that I have on this aircraft, we should be bleeding speed like crazy in those turns. But I mean, it's definitely an improvement. It is definitely an improvement. I can definitely appreciate the effort that has been put into this one. The aircraft has changed significantly. And some of these curvatures, you could probably adjust inside of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Go to your axis tuning and reduce the curvature to the aircraft. You know what? Let's do that together. Let's do that together. Let me actually close SPAD because I don't know what SPAD's input on that's going to be. Let me do something real quick, and we'll see if we can do this together here. So joystick, I need to enable that. I was using SPAD.next while I was flying, so that's why we had to change it. And let's see, how do we do this? I've never actually used this, so you guys are going to have to bear with me for just a minute. Okay, so we've selected that. Let's go to sensitivity. Okay, sensitivity. Now, what do we have? We should have, why do I have plus and minus? Dead zone, neutral, extreme dead zone, reactivity. What is turning the reactivity down? Is that what I'm looking for? Why do I have a minus and a plus? Not sure. Oh, I see. All right, we want to increase that band. All right, so 77. Oh, did I go to 77 for each? There we go. All right, so let's try that and see how much that reduces the input on the aircraft. That's better. Okay, so you guys see what I mean? I have more control of the aircraft. And then when I go to those far ranges, you know, if I need it, I've still got it. Okay? Let's do the same thing on the vertical axis. Oh, wait, we did the vertical axis. Never mind, disregard. Now, I probably tuned it down a little too much, not going to lie. But when we go, like, for example, to the external view. Oh, I turned the controls off. Here we go. The turning seems a bit more, for just normal flight, it's a bit easier to handle. And it feels a bit more natural. I can put the aircraft where I want it. Again, I'm not in a dogfight right now, you know, I'm just trying to fly around Vegas. So now let's see what the big kicker was. My probably biggest complaint previously about this aircraft was landing. Landing was just no. So I think I see our airfield out there. Let's turn back towards Nellis. Start bleeding some speed off. Let's pull that speed brake out. Getting some goofy stuttering coming in here. So the vertical axis, you see, even with just the slight movement, it's still very weird. But I will say, adding that curvature made a difference. We're almost at our 3-degree line. The fly-by-wire feel is, I think the fly-by-wire feel is at the source of just about all of the flight model issues. It's not fluid. It's very jerky, like I was saying earlier. It's not a fluid transition from one direction to the other and one surface to the other. It's very aggressive, very abrupt. And, you know, I've spoken with real-world F-15 pilots and, you know, asked them, you know, what the performance of it was like. And they all say it's a dream. You know, low speed, high speed. You know, that gigantic fuselage that she has just makes her a kite. All right, so let's get the flaps down. Let's get the gear down. Start trimming our nose. I'm going to continue trim to keep our flight path indicator on our runway. There's the flaps coming down. Pull the speed brake back out. And now she's very aggressively wanting to come nose down or nose up. Landing at almost 200 knots here. Seems a bit fast. Aircraft datum's at about 6 degrees, so we got almost 6 degrees of flare. Alright, power off, speed brake back out. Alright, now I accidentally, because I pulled the throttles to idle, so I just killed the engines. So that really needs to be adjusted. Putting the throttles back in to get the engine power back. I'm gently touching on the brakes. Now, if I were to go full brake pedal here, there's that bouncing thing coming out. And it gets worse and worse and worse. So I'm willing to bet that would eventually cause a problem. So I would say that bouncing thing with the brakes needs to be adjusted as well. And see, I'm very lightly. We're at 40 knots. And I'm just trying to apply enough brake pressure to stop the aircraft. We're approaching the threshold of the runway. And it starts doing that bouncing thing. 20 knots, and I can't go full brakes. Come on. There. So, final thoughts on the DC Designs F-15 latest update as of June 14th, 2022. Right out of the bat, I'm going to answer the question that's still on everyone's mind, I'm sure. Is it worth $40? In my personal opinion, no. Is it a big improvement from when it was when I last flew it and when it was launched? Absolutely. There's definitely effort being put into it. There's definitely some changes that have made the aircraft a bit more stable and a bit more enjoyable to fly. It requires a lot of changes, I think, on the pilot side in order to get it configured in a way that can be comfortable to fly. I think if you just pull this thing out of the box and try to fly it, you're going to have a really rough time. There are quite a few bugs and odd behaviors with the aircraft that are my reasons for not justifying the $40 price point. Again, I have to stand firm that I still do not believe comfortably that there are actually 4 different variations of this aircraft that come with the package. I think there are 4 very, very similar variations that come with this aircraft with very similar flight model behaviors and therefore very similar flight model problems. This is a flight simulator. Okay, the flight model is the key aspect. If you have an aircraft that is borderline uncontrollable because of the oddities, not necessarily because of the performance of the aircraft, you have to readjust your price point accordingly. It's not that you can't release something like that. I would never say that. Never presume to tell anyone what they can and can't release. I was asked to review it, so you guys are just getting my honest opinion. And, you know, like I said, when I was up there, I had a good time flying it. I did. So that's a significant improvement from the last time, because the last time I think I made it shortly after takeoff, and I turned back around, tried to land it and said, forget this, and literally have not flown it since my previous video. And I'd have to go back and look, but it's been a long time. So after the request of seeing this, I decided, what the heck, let's give it a shot. And at least this time I had a good time flying it. I absolutely did. But there were a lot of things that I had to be aware of in order to land it where other people, you know, may not be aware of, especially if it's your first time purchasing coming right out of the box, that are going to be a game killer for them. Like I said, the very springy, bouncy effect of the aircraft flight model is frustrating. And the aircraft is the F-15 is one of the elite superiority fighters of the world to this day. You know, I've heard from multiple F-15 fighter pilots at air shows and things like that they love it. It's a dream. It's like flying a Lamborghini, you know, and low speed handling, high speed handling, everything's just smooth and gorgeous. You know, the lack of drag, when we were going through those canyons earlier, I was pushing 400 knots and coming up on probably it was close to 6 or 7, you know, G turns, and I wasn't bleeding really any airspeed. That's again, I'd like to see some introduction of drag, especially based on the payload. You can see we have 3 bags and a full weapons arsenal on board here. She shouldn't be quite that maneuverable with that kind of arsenal on it. We should be able to feel the difference between the 2 loadouts. And by the way, that does go back to earlier. I was up in the air. I sort of lied to you guys a little bit. I was up in the air getting the flight controls set up for the spoilers and things, and it was an empty load. And it flew the exact same. And again, you know, it's not like it's the end of the world. It doesn't have to be perfectly matched. It just doesn't. What I'd like to see is smooth. You know, it doesn't have to match the real-world aircraft performance, but I'd like to see smooth, comfortable behavior of the aircraft for the price point that is being asked for it. The weird braking issue, that's a pretty significant bug. And she shouldn't be bouncing like that. Let me know if you guys are seeing that. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only one who's seeing that weird bouncing when you hit the brakes. And by all means, let me know, please. You know, that's something that I would love to know. If that's something that's specific to my version, I will say this is a fresh install of the entire aircraft that was put in today. I have not had this aircraft installed for months. So anyways, so my biggest issue is obviously the flight model, the odd bug behaviors. I would say get rid of the cutoff by putting your throttles into the idle position. Get rid of that. Make the cutoff a button press or a switch or a toggle. You know, I get the realism, totally understand what was trying to be done here, and I can totally appreciate that. But I think you're going to have a lot of people who don't have you know, tool or maybe hardware that can support an actual cutoff detent. Like for example, the Thrustmaster Warthog can, but I wasn't in the detent. I was just at idle, and you know, and the engines would shut off. So find a different way to do the cutoff. That way, you know, you can very comfortably put your throttle all the way back and not have to worry about terminating the engines. the braking, the bouncing down the runway thing, this is Nellis is a very large airport. The F-15, we should have been able to stop it long before we did, but I couldn't because of that bouncing thing. And then I would say just, maybe find a way to reduce some of the input on the flight controls from the coding side, so that way she's not so reactive. It's a very reactive aircraft, very powerful aircraft, but she's not a fly-by-wire plane. It is not a fly-by-wire aircraft. So make sure that if this can be done, make sure you adjust your curves, guys. If you guys have it, smooth it out a little bit, make it so it's not so violent. Again, if this gets back to the developer Dean, I would recommend doing that on the hard code side, reducing the input of the controls. Don't lose any of its capability, the max roll rate, max vertical rate, just increase the input required to hit those numbers, is what my recommendation would do. And I think that would also help smooth out a lot of the other weird springy effect that I was feeling with the aircraft because it was so jolty. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys found this video useful. As always, let me know what you think down in the comments below. I really tried hard to keep as much of the negativity out of this as I can, and tried to look at this as if it was a new aircraft versus previous experiences. So I hope you guys appreciate this, and I hope it was effective criticism here on the aircraft, and I hope it continues to develop. I hope you guys all have a wonderful evening and a fantastic week, and as always, stay safe and healthy. I'll see you in the next one.